Welcome to another episode of Pistons of Fury. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to build a PCV system for your LS turbo swap the right way. So we start this episode, like we do most episodes these days, at the workbench. So what we're working on in this episode is our PCV oil catch can system. So what I have here, this is an Evil Energy, right? That seems to be the brand of choice on Amazon these days. Lots of good reviews on this thing, and this is just a machined aluminum piece from China. There's some Chinese labeling on the box that it came in. But overall, pretty well put together. So basically it comes with a bracket, it's Allen key bolted, and that's also a machine piece, so you can actually install the bracket separately, which makes for pretty easy installation, removal, and emptying and things like that. So a few features of this thing: it comes with this whole assorted kit of different, basically different hose barb sizes. And the one that I've selected, this is 5/8 inch hose, is a pretty good fit for these. These are not NPT. They're some sort of metric hose size or fitting size. Annoyingly, it has oil catch can label on the top, which I've kind of written over with some Sharpie. I tried some acetone to get it off, but it's kind of etched in there, so I may end up painting this or something like that. But anyway, that's a minor inconvenience. So basically inside, we've got a, it's just a, again, machined aluminum's threaded. We have an O-ring around there, and then on the inside, there's basically like a little bit of a mesh area, and oil comes in, goes through the mesh, or air plus oil comes in through the mesh, assuming that the, any particulate stuff or oil gets caught up in this and then drips down, and then basically air comes out. So in, out. It also has a provision for a little breather filter. If you want to do that, put that on the top, but I'm going to be running a closed PCV system because I don't want to smell the fumes. And then finally, other nice little feature is comes with a little dipstick, so you can actually see when you need to empty it. So what I'm going to be doing, not modifying this too extensively, but I will be putting some stainless steel wool in here, just to kind of capture some of that residue or whatever gets thrown through this. So what I'm going to be doing for the car and how this is going to be routed is basically I'm installing this on the driver's side, and how it's going to work basically is we will go from the driver's side valve cover on the LS up into here, that'll go in, and out is going to be directly into the intake manifold. And then on the other side of the car, on the passenger side valve cover, I'm going to use the standard 3/8 inch PCV valve, and that's going to go to my air intake, and we'll have check valves on both sides. So I'll show you guys a diagram a little bit later in the build, but the first thing we need to do is pull off the intake manifold and pull off the driver's side valve cover. Okay, so I've got the intake manifold pulled off, and pulled the throttle body off, got the injectors off, so we're basically at a clean slate here. So I've got a couple things to do now that I do have this off, specifically related to this project, or this piece of the build. We are going to basically tap this blank. This is like a plug blank. We're going to tap that for 1/2 inch NPT. And that's going to be part of our PCV system. While we have this off, and I can actually get the shavings and everything out of it, I need to basically come in here and drill out this slightly larger, because the 2.5 bar map sensor is a different diameter than the stock 1-bar sensor that comes with the truck. And finally, we need to get our IAT sensor mounted in this hole up here, which was previously EVAP. You've seen Sloppy Mechanics and a couple other guys just kind of hammer something in. I don't know if we're going to hammer anything in, but we're basically going to clearance the IAT sensor that I got, epoxy that in there, and call that good. And I believe that is those are the 3 things we need to do while we have this off. You've also probably seen guys take this back plug out and use that for PCV. That's the brake booster plug, but the problem is that doesn't get big enough, so I wouldn't be able to run an NPT 1/2 inch through that, and that just wouldn't give me enough flow for my PCV valve. So that's off, and then the other piece that I have pulled off right now is the valve cover. Basically, we're going to come in here and pull this out, and then tap that for 1/2 inch NPT as well. And I'm not sure if I'm going to remove this baffle or not. Not sure on the aerodynamics, if air will still find its way out of there pressure-wise. So I'll need to think about that, maybe do some reading. But first thing, we're going to start tapping some holes in the intake manifold. Okay, so a little update. Let's see, we have our 1/2 inch MPT to 5/8, or the hardware they called it 3/4 hose. I'm not sure, but it's the exact same barb size as the one that came with my catch can. So either way, it's going to work great on 5/8 inch fuel hose because it's got oil in it, so don't use heater hose for this or it will harden. So we'll be getting some 5/8 inch fuel hose that'll tie in. I need to figure out which check valve I'm going to use for this. I need to make sure I get one that's big enough and is rated for the pressure I'm going to be running. But yeah, then got this 2.5 bar map sensor pressed in. I might come back and do some kind of mount that uses these 2 screws, which are just going to remain there in my intake manifold, to maybe just kind of put some pressure on that, because I had to modify this. If you've seen a 2.5 bar map, they actually have a bolt hole on one side, so you can have to modify them to get them to fit with these clips here on the LS truck manifold. But all good, fits well. Was able to tap that pretty easily. There's more than enough plastic, if you've been wondering. You can absolutely tap these caps. It's a nice snug fit. It feels pretty secure. So that's all good. We're gonna get this cleaned out. I need to blow it out with some compressed air, make sure I have all the shavings out. And actually, before I do that, I'll make sure that I can fit my IAT sensor in there. And then once that's done, we can throw this back on the car and start marking up our catch can. Alright, I guess it's time for an update. So we've made some pretty good progress here. So I basically have this intake manifold tapped MPT. I have my 5/8 NPT to barb pipe fitting adapter or tubing adapter. And I have, essentially I'm going to get another one of these. I didn't have one at my local hardware store, so I have to go find another one. But basically another one's going to go down in here. So the valve cover is also tapped. Same thread, all that good stuff. I'm really getting mileage out of that 1/2 inch tap that I bought. So that's the good news. So basically how this is going to work now is I'm thinking catch can is going to get mounted somewhere up here, maybe on some kind of L bracket, right near the master cylinder, kind of where I have it positioned now. And we'll basically have an in or an out coming out of the valve cover. We'll have a check valve in stream there, and then the out is basically going to go right back into the top of the intake manifold. So closed system, but interestingly, the little, I guess the little barb that comes stock on these LS truck manifolds, I don't know if it's the same for the car, but it actually looks like that. So it's out of focus, but you can kind of see all of your engine crankcase pressure ventilation basically has to come out through that tiny little hole. Even though this is a 3/8 inch hose, it's restricted down. So if you're planning on just trying to get away with these 3-inch barb fittings that come on your valve cover stock, you might want to rethink that. And actually it has me wanting to see if I can pull that out, and then assuming it still has a tiny hole like this, free that up a little bit, because that's going to be my intake. So I'm going to have a check valve running right to my intake in advance of the turbo, and that's where I'll get fresh air for the crankcase, so I can pull vacuum from there. But yeah, might pull that out and see if I can clearance that somehow, because I want a little bit more airflow. So all good. Got to work on mounting the catch can now. Alright, the catch can is now installed, so I have it tack welded on my bracket to the firewall. That should be how I'm going to leave it, but I just tacked it for now, and we'll clean all that up when I go back and clean up the entire firewall. So one change to the system I've made is that I've actually gone back and added the breather to the top of this catch can. So this was an option with this Evil Energy catch can setup. And why I've basically done that is because I think after kind of reviewing the schematic I drew of the system, my current hypothesis is that when the crankcase starts to see more pressure under high RPM, high boost, if I have a closed system on this side, which is like you would call the dirty side of the PCV system, the air has nowhere to go because boost pressure will build up in here, which will force air out there, close my check valve, and then basically this positive crankcase pressure, which comes out of the valve cover, will essentially have nowhere to go and will be stuck in the catch can and probably blow out seals or gaskets or something else. So I'm adding that for now. I'm just going to run with it because I think That should give me a pressure relief. So what I need to do now, and the next thing for the project, is to start to mock up some hoses. I have my check valves in, so we should be able to get all the hoses done here and get this side plumbed, and then we'll move over to the other side. We're going to check out this little 3/8 thing, because as we saw with the other one, there was just a pinhole at the bottom of that, so I may have to pull that out, or at the very least pull the valve cover off, take a look inside, and see if that's going to be a flow issue. So that, again, the idea here is to flow directly from here to my intake, and that'll be the fresh air, and we'll also have a check valve in there. So let's get going and see how far we get on this. Ah. Alright, recap time. So I have my PCV valve and the hose here. So the last thing you saw me doing was modifying my intake pipe. So I basically welded on a little, I guess we call it a nipple, for lack of a better term. Basically chopped that off of one of my old transmission lines, because that was one of the original 3/8 inch lines, which coincidentally or conveniently is the same as this line coming off my rocker cover. So one thing I did as part of that last video segment was I pulled this off. I had to make sure that it wasn't constrained anyway internally, so that's all good in there. It's free flowing. So I've got a one-way check valve, sucks air in, so this is fresh air. It comes from the filter pre-turbo, and we go, as indicated by this arrow here, one way into the crankcase. So that's fresh air, so that's the clean side. Over here we've got the dirty side, and I have this mocked up. That's an MPT fitting, but it's the wrong barb size, so I've got that on order, so I'm just waiting for that, but I wanted to mock it up. So what I have here, this is just 5/8 inch heater hose. Looked online for fuel hose. It's actually pretty expensive, and you can only get it in bulk rolls. So was doing some more research, and even companies that sell this kind of setup use heater hose, and you don't have a whole lot of fuel or oil moving through that. It's really just vapor. So over time it might harden, but easy to replace, cheap to get, easy to get. So that's what we're going to roll with. So as discussed, we've got this guy tapped in here, pulled out that plug that was super restrictive, so drilled that out, tapped it, 1/2 inch NPT. We come up into the catch can, got a baffle inside. I'm probably going to introduce some more baffling just to make sure that we don't get any oil vapor coming through the system. And basically we've got another arrow which shows you directionally. So we come out of the catch can and into the manifold, so clean air. So we take advantage of our positive crankcase ventilation, so we're circulating air, oil, water vapor out of here, and then we're inserting it back into the manifold. When we hit boost, this check valve comes into play, and we basically make sure that we don't leak boost out of the manifold, and also don't send boost back into the crankcase. That's the biggest thing on turbo builds, is you don't want to positively, well, you don't want 20 psi of boost right in your crankcase. That's bad news for everybody all around. So basically when that happens, we'll basically force air out that breather, or that's my current theory, and all is right in the world. So that's it for the PCV system right now. Again, we'll get it running, we'll see how it works. If that ends up creating too much oily smells in the car, then I'll come back and think about how to change that. Worst case, I can just run another hose out here and maybe put a breather way up here in front of the car or at some other remote location, or figure out something else. Another thing I was thinking was I could even just run a separate hose and insert it right back into inline, into my intake track, so the vapors just get circulated back through the engine and burn and all that good stuff. So anyway, that's it for the PCV system. I don't have any final hose clamps or anything on that. I'll do that when I do the final install of the engine, but mock-up for PCV is complete. So spent way too much time researching this. It's actually a lot of different ways to do it. I think this is the way that's going to work best for me with my current setup, but I would love to hear your comments, questions. If you think this will work, won't work, I definitely would love to hear about it, because I am open to changing it. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. We are getting close. We've only got a few more things to do until we reach complete mock-up here in the engine bay. So getting close. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.